Discover the amazing twist. His secret affair exposed when his wife became the five-star hotel owner. Jack Miller had always carved his life around family values, but that certainty now felt like an anchor pulling him under. While he reveled in the chaos of Chicago's architectural scene, the quiet hum of his life at home began to trouble him. Emily and James were sleeping peacefully down the hall, but their innocent faces only served to remind Jack of the sacrifices Sarah had made for him to flourish. She had given up her dreams, traded her ambition for the role of a supportive wife and mother, while he chased accolades in a world that increasingly felt foreign. Yet, fate had other plans. When Sarah inherited a rundown motel from her late uncle, unbeknownst to Jack, she was igniting a fire she had long buried. As he grappled with tight deadlines and demanding clients, she transformed that dilapidated property into a luxurious hotel. The news of her hotel gaining acclaim rattled something deep within him. Jack felt trapped in a corner, his worth unsettled by her burgeoning success. "What about me?" he questioned silently. The ache morphed into resentment. How could a man whose wife was flourishing feel anything but pride? Then came Mia, the hotel reviewer who entered his life like a whirlwind, her laughter brightening meetings, her confidence sparking an interest Jack didn't know he craved. Their chemistry was undeniable, and the thrill of attention felt intoxicating. Each stolen moment with her was a chance to escape the overwhelming pressure closing in on him. They shared stolen kisses, tantalizing promises whispering in the night, the irony of it not lost on him. Could this affair somehow bolster the confidence he felt slipping away? Yet, every encounter felt like a betrayal lurking beneath pleasure, gnawing at him, lighting a spark of guilt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tremors of anticipation intensified as the launch party for Sarah's hotel approached. The air buzzed with excitement, and an undercurrent of icy tension swirling in Jack's chest made it hard to breathe. He adorned a smile, nodding at guests who offered congratulatory remarks, while internally battling a storm of dread. When Sarah confidently took the stage, a stunning vision in both beauty and professional poise, Jack felt pride swell before it constricted into anxiety at the weight of her gaze. As she spoke about her journey and sacrifices, her eyes sparkled with triumph. Jack's heart raced and sank at once, as Sarah's joy morphed into something sharper, cutting straight through the room. The weight of betrayal she sensed, but did not name. Her words, laden with unspoken truths, laid everything bare, a subtle denouncement of their fractured reality. The whispers began as the realization washed over the audience, leaving Jack standing in cold sweat and clenching fists, shame colliding with fear. The room felt tighter, and he was trapped in the cauldron of his choices. As gasps echoed, Jack stood on the precipice of his life, caught in the chaos of exposure. What lay behind the rift in their marriage? Would he rise from the wreckage, or would this moment seal their frayed fates forever? As the room spun with uncertainty, he faced the magnetic crossroads of consequence and longing, each glance reflecting the unraveling of a once sweet dream. Jack stood frozen, a captive audience to the unfolding chaos. The stiff grins of the guests morphed into sneering faces, each one a stark reminder of his failures. As Sarah's voice cascaded over the crowd, a beacon of strength in a moment, filled with uncertainty, he felt like a ghost in his own life. The undercurrent of her words vibrated through him, a palpable sensation of betrayal amplifying under the bright lights. The audience's response morphed from muted whispers to incredulous gasps, the specter of his affair hanging heavily in the air. Their shocked faces were mere reflections of his internal turmoil, each expression fanning the flames of his guilt. Yet, in that chaotic moment, Jack felt a peculiar clarity emerge. He was at a crossroad where he could either confront the man he had become or continue spiraling deeper into his own dishonesty. In the aftermath of the launch party, the days blurred together as Jack fled the real world and retreated to the one place where he once found solace, his drafty studio apartment, cluttered with blueprints and scattered reminders of his career. What had once been an arena of ambition now felt like a box, closing in on him. As he sat hunched over a table covered in designs, He couldn't escape the oppressive memories of Sarah's triumph overshadowing his failures. Jack needed to find more than just an escape. He needed a reset, a way to regain his self-respect and perhaps rebuild the trust he had shattered. Though the affair felt like a fleeting thrill, the guilt attached to it was a heavy anchor. Each day he dodged Sarah at home, avoiding the conversation that would reveal the truth behind his late nights and distracted demeanor. Was another day, he felt his integrity slip further away. He began to realize that avoiding the confrontation wasn't protecting anyone. It was surrendering to complacency that he resolved to redefine himself, starting with his architecture. Jack recognized that behind every successful structure was a story, his own story, waiting to be reclaimed. That stale space where he worked transformed into a workshop of renewal. Late-night inspiration sparked ideas that he had long shelved, a drive to create something not just for accolades, but for himself. With every line drawn, he felt a sliver of his ambition flicker back to life. Determined to confront his choices, he drafted plans for a renovation that lingered in his mind, the very space where he had supported Sarah's dreams. If her journey was about reclaiming her passion, then his had to be a testament of honesty, no matter the outcome. That burgeoning confidence led him to schedule a coffee meeting with a former mentor, someone well-versed in architecture and accountability. The thought brought a mix of excitement and anxiety, as the implications of their conversation could potentially expose his vulnerabilities. What would he say if he knew? Jack questioned as he locked the drawings in a sturdy folder, allowing doubt to creep in. Yet the act of sharing his struggles could also offer clarity, a step toward exploring the man he wished to become, no longer just Sarah's husband, but reclaiming his identity as Jack Miller, an architect of his own destiny. As Jack prepared for the meeting that would set his renewal into motion, an urgent message pinged on his phone. It was Sarah, asking to talk. His heart raced. Would this be the moment of confrontation, the beginning of a reckoning? What truths would emerge as he finally faced their shattered partnership? The air crackled with uncertainty as he replied, knowing this conversation would alter the course of both their lives forever. Jack's hand trembled slightly as he placed the phone down. He could feel the cold sweat running down his back, a stark contrast to the heat of determination igniting within him. The moment he hit send on his reply to Sarah, he had drawn a line in the sand, crafting an invitation for a conversation that could be both cathartic and perilous. His mind raced as he paced the creaky floorboards of his apartment. What do I say? He muttered to himself, echoing the severity of the question that gripped him. The weight of his decisions pressed heavily on his chest, each heartbeat a reminder of the fragile trust he had essentially dismantled. Jack recalled the countless times he had walked into this apartment, engulfed in dreams of grandeur and reverberating echoes of laughter shared with Sarah. He envisioned the plans that danced on his drawing board, ambitions for bridges and parks, structures that could withstand time. But now, facing the wreckage of their relationship, all he felt was the emptiness of unfulfilled potential. The scheduled coffee meeting with his mentor loomed in the back of his mind, adding another layer of pressure. If he was to rebuild his career and self-esteem, he couldn't afford to show up like a beaten man. He had to confront this issue head-on, not just with Sarah, but with the parts of himself he had neglected for too long. As dusk descended, the sun cast elongated shadows across his workspace, illuminating the plans scattered across the table. It felt both poetic and tragic, a layout of a life he had envisioned, now crisscrossed with dashed lines and incomplete designs. Maybe Sarah would understand that in the shadows of his failure existed the potential for light. There was a knock at the door. Jack's stomach tightened as he opened it, revealing Sarah's expectant face, a mix of vulnerability and strength etched into her features. For a moment, they stood in silence, a thin veil of memories enveloping them, past laughter, shared dreams, and the shattering silence that defined their recent months. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steadier than he felt. "Sure," he replied, stepping back to let her in. They settled at the small dining table that had once hosted too many of their ambitious discussions about the future. The shift in atmosphere was palpable as Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the floor. "I heard about everything," she finally said. Each word felt like a stone dropped into a vast, deep well, sending ripples through the atmosphere. Jack clenched his fists beneath the table. "I didn't want to hurt you, Sarah. I made mistakes, terrible ones, and I can't undo the damage." His words burst forth in a frantic rush, stemming from a well of emotion he'd been bottling up. How do we move forward from here? She asked, her eyes searching his, revealing an emotional landscape of hurt and longing for resolution. The question hung heavily in the air, a scythe poised to sever the ties of their shared history. Jack realized this was the mirror he had been avoiding, a chance to either reveal his most vulnerable self or mask it further in a haze of denial. I want to be honest, he said slowly. Not just to you, but to myself too. I'm working on a new project, something to prove to us both that I can rebuild. This was part of his recognition. He was finally stepping into the role of creator, not just of architecture, but of his own destiny. Sarah's expression softened slightly, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. What kind of project? She inquired, genuinely intrigued. Jack took a deep breath, realizing that discussing the new venture could open the door to reconciliation. Renovation plans for our old community center, the one where we first met. As the conversation deepened, revealing layers both shared and unshared, Jack felt the air shift between them. They were standing not at an end, but at a pivotal moment that could reshape their future. In the midst of the unfolding dialogue, a realization dawned on Jack. This was not merely about fixing broken pieces of their relationship. This was a crucial step towards redefining who he was: the architect, the husband, and ultimately, the man he aspired to be. But just as hope flickered, a sudden unwelcome uncertainty loomed. What if the cost of honesty reveals secrets he wasn't prepared to share? And in that moment, he sensed that the past was not only resurfacing, but ready to haunt him as well. What was waiting in the shadows, ready to confront the life he thought he was recreating? The thought filled him with a tumult of anxiety. The impending chaos would either pave the way for growth or push him deeper into the abyss of his miscalculations. Jack's heart raced as Sarah took a measured breath, her eyes narrowing in focus. The atmosphere thrummed with tension, heavy with unspoken realizations and the weight of their shared history. He fought the urge to retreat to safer territory, anything that wouldn't expose him too deeply, but he knew this was a moment of reckoning. I want you to understand that the project means more than just bricks and mortar, he began, his voice steadier than he felt. It's symbolic. It's about rebuilding trust and making something lasting out of our shared dreams. She didn't respond immediately, and the silence was deafening. Jack's thoughts spiraled. Would this really be the thread to weave them back together? Or would it merely unearth deeper ones? I'm listening, Sarah said finally, her voice a mix of curiosity and caution. What do you need from me? The straightforwardness of her question left Jack momentarily stunned. The truth? Help? Acceptance? What if she wasn't willing to take those steps with him? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you could join me? Help with the design ideas? He suggested tentatively. The instant he said it, doubt surged. Was he only seeking her forgiveness through shared labor? Or did he truly believe that collaborating could stitch their lives back together? Running a hand through his hair, he added, I think the project could bring closure. Or a new beginning. Closure or a beginning. Sarah echoed, her face impassive. He couldn't read her reaction, which only heightened the noise in his mind. Then she said, but what if it doesn't work? What if we find ourselves in the same place, stuck and unable to move forward? A knot formed in Jack's stomach. The risk of failure loomed, as palpable as the memories of their happier times. Would this endeavor merely highlight past grievances? He clenched his fists under the table, forcing himself to confront the fear that gripped him. We won't know unless we try, he replied, firming his resolve despite the uncertainty brewing within him. Maybe it's the same fear that stopped you before. Sarah's gaze bore into his. You're asking for us to rebuild, but I need to understand how you're willing to change. Her words cut deeper than he anticipated. Was she right? Had his hesitation in the past stifled their potential? Jack realized he had put significant barriers around his vulnerability, even in his professional aspirations. They had to shatter these walls if they had any hope of healing. I've been so afraid of failure that I didn't allow myself to embrace the risks that come with building something beautiful. He looked her squarely in the eyes, searching for a flicker of understanding. It's not just about the center. It's about understanding that both of us need to be in a space where it's safe to create, to fail, and to grow together. The vulnerability in his tone seemed to hang in the air, a new possibility. Sarah's expression shifted, the walls appearing to soften. And if I can't fully commit? If I can't really nourish this idea? Jack felt a twinge of panic. If she couldn't commit, was he destined to repeat past mistakes? Would this be another in a series of false starts? Then we have to be honest about it, he stated, gripping the table's edge to ground himself. Better to know now than later, don't you think? A moment passed before Sarah nodded slowly, the weight of their decisions reflected in her gaze. Honesty it is. As they began to sketch tentative plans together, Jack's mind buzzed with potential. Could this venture be a true turning point in their relationship? Yet, beneath the rising tide of hope, a familiar unease surfaced. What other truths lay dormant, capable of threatening this delicate process? As the enormity of their choices loomed over him, an unsettling doubt crept in. Was he unwittingly threading the needle only to have his past unravel and expose him once more? The thought paralyzed him momentarily. Could he truly manage the upcoming chaos of both his life and career, or would the foundations he was trying to set slip away into a familiar abyss? As these questions churned in his mind, the phone buzzed, jarring him back to the present. An unanswered text from his mentor glowed on the screen, igniting yet another fire. Was he prepared to face the judgment awaiting him at their meeting? Jack swallowed hard, the tension in his throat reflecting the churning uncertainty in his mind. He stared at the glowing screen, the text from his mentor laying heavy against the backdrop of what he had just shared with Sarah. It was merely a request to meet, but now, it felt like an ultimatum. Was he truly ready to face the scrutiny of someone who had been pivotal in shaping his career? As he tapped the notification, he felt a strange mix of excitement and foreboding. His mentor had always been a steadfast source of guidance, pushing him to confront his fears rather than evade them. Yet today, Jack couldn't help but question whether he was worthy of the advice. What would he even say? A self-conscious laugh escaped his lips. I'm still here, aiming for a new beginning with a project that might save me and maybe my relationship with Sarah. But would that assessment seem naive to someone entrenched in professional realities? The weight of his mentor's expectations pressed down on him like a physical force, layering anxiety over his burgeoning resolve. Yet, lingering doubts about his professional competency loomed. Had he been stagnant? Had the years of playing it safe left him ill-equipped for the weight of rebuilding not only a project, but his life? I'll need to be honest, he whispered to himself, the admission forging a sense of crucible around his thoughts. The meeting would demand nothing less. He began mentally assembling his narrative, the risk he intended to take, the reasons behind it, and the necessity of Sarah's collaboration. How would he frame it? He needed to present himself as someone ready to embrace vulnerability, willing to step into chaos to pursue growth. With a deep breath, Jack caught his reflection in the window, a face lined with uncertainty tempered by flickers of determination. Today represented more than just a meeting. It was a commitment to change. But the specter of past failures loomed over him, warning that every attempt to build could crumble under the weight of old habits. The thought of Sarah returned, igniting a fresh swell of emotion. She was holding out her hand, extending an offer to navigate this uncertain course together. But was he truly ready to grapple with the complexities of his past while moving toward an uncertain future? Time slipped away as he drafted a response to his mentor. Would he admit to the precarious situation he found himself in? The truth was, he needed direction not just in project planning, but in asserting his identity, both personally and professionally. With the text sent and anxiety swirling, Jack returned to the kitchen table and the half-drawn plans with Sarah. Would their collaboration yield more than architectural sketches? Could it mean constructing a foundation for their relationship? As they shifted gears to discuss design elements, Jack couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. Beneath the creative exchange lay unresolved issues that threatened to resurface. Each line drawn felt exhilarating yet fraught with the risk of unraveling once more. How much could he commit without knowing whether his emotional foundation was sturdy enough to support the new structure they sought to create together? Every shared laugh held the potential to smooth over old wounds. But how long could this facade last? Jack's mind raced with questions, each one tugging at the fragile line that separated progress from collapse. Could he juggle ambition and personal stakes? Would he be forced to confront the truth of his past failures when faced with expectations at the meeting? Just as Jack opened his mouth to voice his concerns to Sarah, another notification interrupted his mentor, responding with an address and a cryptic, "Let us make it count." With a knowing glance at Sarah, he felt an unmistakable jolt of energy. The moment of truth was soon approaching. Would he find the courage to bring his full self to the table, ready to build, or would he expose his vulnerabilities only to watch them collapse under the weight of doubt? There was only one way to find out, and time was not on his side. The hum of city life wrapped around Jack, a stark contrast to the storm brewing deep inside him. He paced the small confines of his apartment, the air thick with tension as he rehearsed his words for the upcoming meeting. The clock ticked loudly, reminding him how precious every moment was. Today, he had to showcase a version of himself that he had long buried under self-doubt and second-guessing. Jack took a seat at the kitchen table again, pushing aside the architectural sketches. They felt like playful doodles compared to the enormity of the implications behind the project he would finally present. Constructing a new professional identity alongside his relationship with Sarah was a delicate balancing act. He needed to embody confidence without the artifice he had often relied on in past dealings. This was not about impressing his mentor or sealing a deal. It was about defining who he was and who he intended to be. Checking his reflection again, he noticed the shadows of uncertainty still lingering under his eyes. He needed to do something that would push him into the realm of discomfort. This urge prompted him to scribble a few notes, outlining the core truths of his journey, the fears he wanted to overcome, the redemption he sought. Each word felt like a stepping stone toward his future, yet the weight of unaddressed fears made the steps shaky. His phone buzzed once more. It was a reminder of the meeting time. Jack took a deep breath, a steadiness blossoming within, a stark contrast to the tumult of earlier. He knew what he had to do: dive into the depths of vulnerability and wear his experiences like armor, not a hindrance. He quickly typed a message to Sarah, suggesting they meet shortly before his meeting. She deserved to know how vital her role in this was. He hit send, feeling a flicker of excitement. When they met, he watched Sarah as she moved confidently through the space they were designing together. She was in her element, and a part of Jack felt lifted by her presence. Her unrestrained joy in the creative process reminded him of why he needed this project. The architecture was no longer merely structural. It had transformed into a canvas for their collective journey. As they worked, Jack spoke candidly about his apprehensions, the anxiety of meeting his mentor weighed against the desire to prove himself. "What if I fall short again?" he confessed, the words rolling from his lips laced with vulnerability. Sarah paused, her expression shifting to one of concern mixed with encouragement. "You're not alone in this. I'm right here with you. Trust yourself." Her words resonated deeply with him, cutting through layers of fear. In that moment, the foundation he had so desperately sought began to take shape. The idea of collaboration with Sarah meant more than just merging ideas. It signified the first steps toward healing, both in personal and professional arenas. He had felt stagnant for too long, and this newfound partnership offered a potent antidote. After they wrapped up their brainstorming session, Jack turned to her. "Let us promise to be honest. No secrets. Not in our work or between us." He meant every word, recognizing that his previous failures often stemmed from avoidance and denial. Just then, his phone dinged again, the familiar ping fueling a swell of dread. It was a message from his mentor. "Don't forget why we're meeting today. Nothing is off the table. Bring your authentic self, Jack." The ambiguity hung over him like a dark cloud. Jack nodded to Sarah, their gaze locking with understanding. The real showdown was coming, and he was about to put every ounce of growth to the test. Would he rise to the occasion, or would his past insecurities derail the budding potential of this new path? As he made to leave, Sarah reached for his hand. "No matter what, let us build something real together, okay?" With the ground shifting beneath him, Jack knew this was just the beginning of a more complicated journey than he had ever anticipated, one where the stakes were not confined to bricks and beams, but stretched into the very core of his identity. He felt the pulse of possibility vibrate through him, pushing aside fear. The moment of reckoning loomed closer now than ever, and with it came the realization that uncovering truths could bring both liberation and peril. What awaited him in that meeting room was only the beginning of a much larger saga. Little did he know, a revelation was about to surface that would change everything. Jack couldn't shake the weight of anticipation that clung to him as he approached the towering glass building that housed his mentor's office. Each step felt like an echo of his past failures, a relentless reminder of the doors he had allowed to close. Today he was determined to seize his own narrative. As he entered the lobby, Jack scanned the space, a frenetic blend of modern design and corporate slickness. It smelled of fresh varnish and ambition, yet he felt as if he were walking into a lion's den. The spaces between the buttoned-up suits and polished shoes felt like a chasm separating him from the composure he craved. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the elevator, where a polished mirror reflected a man wrestling with self-doubt. With every floor that ticked by, memories of past disappointments surged, presentations that fell flat, ideas brushed aside, and the constant refrain of not being good enough. A trap of his own making. The urge to turn back was enticing, but he reminded himself that avoidance would not yield growth. He steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. When the elevator doors opened, Jack walked into the conference room where his mentor, Mark, waited. Mark was a bastion of confidence, a man who effortlessly commanded attention. The contrast between them was stark. Jack hesitated at the threshold, every fiber of his being urging him to reconsider. What if he stumbled? Jack! Mark greeted him, his smile amiable yet probing. Glad you made it. Let us get down to business. As they settled into the room, Jack unfurled his presentation, determined to articulate his vision clearly. He spoke passionately, detailing the project that he and Sarah had meticulously crafted together. He could see Mark's eyes flicker with interest, but underneath the professional gaze lay an edge of scrutiny. Interesting approach, Mark said, tilting his head thoughtfully. But let's not forget, failure is part of learning. How have you turned yours into growth? The question hung heavily in the air, the weight of it pressing against Jack's newfound resolve. This was his moment to be honest, to confront the very fears he had been running from. His heart raced, but instead of sidestepping, he leaned in. I've often let fear keep me from showing my true self. I've learned that authenticity, being honest about my struggles, is crucial. Mark's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. Yet you've kept such vulnerability hidden. Why now? Jack's pulse quickened as clarity surged within him. Because I want to build something real, both personally and professionally. I've realized that the path to success is not just about delivering results, but about forming genuine connections, acknowledging failures, and forging ahead together. As the words poured out, he felt a surge of empowerment. The tension that had plagued him began to dissipate as he embraced the vulnerability he had so long denied. Mark listened intently, now leaning forward, intrigued. What does transparency mean for you in this collaboration? Mark pressed. The project represents more than just architecture to me. It's a reflection of our shared journey with Sarah. It's about supporting each other, cultivating trust, and being accountable. That's the foundation we need. In that moment, Jack felt the gravity of his words resonate in the space, a declaration of his shift from doubt to determination. He had unveiled a deeper layer of himself, and something sparked in Mark's eyes, a glimmer of respect. Perhaps you've finally started to understand, Mark commented, a brusque smile forming on his lips. Authenticity is a powerful tool. Now, let's discuss how we can bring this vision into reality. As they delved into the intricacies of the project, Jack's mind raced with exhilaration. He had opened a door, and through it flowed new possibilities. But with each passing moment in the conversation, he felt the undercurrent of unresolved tension beneath the surface. What ramifications would his newfound honesty exact on his professional relationship with Mark? Would it lead to further collaboration, or might it expose challenges he wasn't ready to face? As the meeting drew to a close, uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud. Jack left the conference room feeling lighter yet fraught with the impending realization that true vulnerability often creates profound connections and, at the same time, can lay bare the fissures in one's foundation. He had taken significant strides, but was he truly prepared for the consequences that lay ahead? Walking into the elevator, Jack stared at his reflection again this time. He noted a flicker of determination in his eyes. The next chapter of his journey awaited, filled with unanswered questions regarding his relationship with Sarah and how he would navigate this newfound path. Little did he know, a revelation involving their project beckoned, one that would test not just his professional acumen, but the very core of their partnership. The elevator doors slid shut, isolating Jack in the confined yet strangely liberating space. As he descended, he felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety pulsating through him. He had been authentic with Mark for the first time, laying his vulnerabilities bare, yet lingering questions echoed in his mind. Would this leap of faith translate into success, or had he placed himself at the mercy of judgment and scrutiny? Upon stepping into the lobby, the polished concrete felt rough underfoot, reminding him of the hard truths he now embraced. He glanced at the time, realizing he was due to meet Sarah soon. Their project had become not just a professional endeavor, but a journey of shared aspirations and hidden fears. He would need to explain everything that had transpired during his meeting with Mark, starting from the honesty he had just embraced. Coffee in hand, Jack found a quiet spot in a nearby park. The sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows and creating a serene ambience that contrasted with the turmoil within him. He ran his fingers over the presentation notes still crumpled in his pocket. That moment of vulnerability had been transformative, yet he couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that Sarah might not be ready for the same level of raw honesty. Their partnership had always been fraught with unspoken expectations and latent fears. Jack recalled the tension that crackled in their last conversation. The fear of not being appreciated for his efforts sometimes overshadowed the warmth they had built over the years. Yet, standing at this junction, he recognized the imperative for openness. With that realization struck a stark question. Was he prepared to face her expectations, particularly if his newfound authenticity challenged their established dynamic? As he sipped the coffee, a small tremor of uncertainty ran through him. What if Sarah's reaction mirrored his past experiences, the flicker of disappointment in her eyes? He knew that being honest could potentially unravel their carefully woven narrative. But deep inside, a counter voice urged him to forge ahead, to reclaim not just his integrity, but the essence of their partnership. They were meant to support each other, and perhaps this was the moment they would both grow. The tranquil setting began to swirl as he ruminated. The leaves swayed in the gentle breeze, whispering promises of an uncertain future. Would this push for authenticity lay bare deeper issues within their collaboration? The thoughts gnawed at him relentlessly. He pictured their discussion unfolding. Would it spark fear and defensiveness, or would it ignite a positive change? Finally, he steeled himself, realizing he had to take responsibility for his choices. It was time to embrace the vulnerability he had shown to Mark with Sarah. They had crafted something beautiful together. He could no longer hide behind mere ambition. However, his resolve also awakened an undercurrent of anxiety. What if the conversation led to an unexpected confrontation? Jack's phone buzzed, pulling him back to the moment. It was Sarah, confirming their meeting point. He took a deep breath. As he made his way to their usual cafe, he felt the tremors of unease in his gut settle into a firm resolve. He would tell her everything. Arriving early, he settled at their favorite table, each tick of the clock amplifying the anticipation coiling in his stomach. Their past conversations echoed in his mind, a merger of ambitious hopes and unacknowledged fears. He understood, instinctively, that this moment would shape not only their project but the very foundation of their relationship. With thoughts swirling, he began to mentally draft his approach. He would lead with honesty, expound on his vision of authenticity, and hope they could confront whatever shadows lay between them. As he worked mentally through the dialogue, a sudden flash of doubt hit him. Was he ready to risk everything? Just then, he noticed Sarah arriving through the cafe window, a beaming image of energy and potential. As she stepped inside, her presence lit up the space, yet with it came a sense of foreboding. The question of whether this joyous encounter would lead to revelation or conflict loomed large, and as she drew closer, Jack's heart raced, for in that moment, he realized the stakes had never been higher. Would he be brave enough to unveil the truths that could either elevate their partnership or tear it apart? With that thought unspooling in his mind, Jack knew he was on the precipice of significant change. The conversation was about to begin, and in that instant, it felt as if everything was hanging in the balance. The cafe exuded a familiar warmth, but to Jack, it felt charged, almost electric. Sarah approached with an easy smile, her bright eyes reflecting a spectrum of enthusiasm. Jack couldn't help but admire her vivacity, yet a knot tightened in his stomach. As she settled into the chair opposite him, her presence evoked warmth and dread in equal measure. "Hey, you look deep in thought," she said with a grin, sensing the tension coiling around him. "Yeah, busy day," he replied, his voice wavering slightly. He instinctively gripped the presentation notes tighter in his pocket, feeling the rough edges press into his skin. It was a tangible reminder of what he needed to share. "So what's on the agenda today?" Sarah asked, the excitement in her voice sparking a flicker of hope in him. In her eagerness, he saw the potential for understanding, the possibility of collaboration that had always driven their relationship. Jack took a breath, trying to anchor himself in reality. "Actually, Sarah, I want to talk about our project and about me," he said, the words tumbling out faster than he could grasp them. Sarah's smile faded just a little, replaced by curiosity. "Okay, what's up?" she prompted, leaning in slightly as if to create a more intimate space between them. a comforting gesture that only heightened his anxiety that he hesitated, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The air was thick with possibilities, but Jack had to be vigilant. I had a meeting with Mark, and well, I was more honest than I've ever been. I laid out my concerns, my struggles with everything, and it felt liberating. Sarah's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and confusion. That sounds like a big step for you. But why are you bringing this up now? Jack felt the walls close in. Because it made me realize something important. I've been holding back with you too. I don't want to do that anymore. I need to be transparent about my ideas and about what I've been feeling in our partnership. The tension thickened as silence enveloped them. Jack noticed a flicker of apprehension cross Sarah's face, the gears in her mind visibly turning. Would she feel threatened by his honesty or inspired? Okay, she finally said, her brow furrowing as she searched his expression. But what are you afraid of? I guess I'm afraid you won't receive it well. That you might see it as me doubting our project or doubting you, Jack admitted, each word spilling out with hesitant clarity. It was an unguarded confession that cracked open layers of fear buried deep within him. Sarah frowned slightly, processing his words. You shouldn't be worried about that, Jack. I thought we were a team, she said softly. But why is this so hard for you? It feels like I'm exposing myself, like I've built a facade around my insecurities. I worry about disappointing you or ruining what we've built together. I mean, what if you feel that I'm not worthy of this partnership because I'm admitting my fears? A shadow passed over Sarah's face. Jack, I thought you knew that I appreciate you for who you are. We all have insecurities. It's how we handle them that matters. He felt a pulse of relief, yet the underlying reality remained. This was the crux of their relationship, built on compartments of doubt and aspiration. I want to tackle our challenges together, but stepping into the open scares me. As Jack spoke, he felt an unfamiliar shiver of determination unfurl within him. This wasn't just about their project. It was a chance to dismantle the barriers that had stifled their partnership. What if we embraced vulnerability together? He proposed, longing for her commitment. Her eyes sparked, hinting at a mixture of excitement and nervousness. What does that even look like? Let us strip away the pretenses. Share our real thoughts, expose our fears, and figure out how we can support each other better, he suggested, his voice gaining strength. Silence followed, the weight of their conversation settling in the space between them, brimming with potential. Jack could sense the change in the air, yet he was acutely aware that this moment might lead them to a pivotal juncture, an unexpected confrontation that could shift everything. Are you ready for that? She asked, eyes piercing into him. Jack knew this was only the beginning. What he had set in motion could shift the entire foundation of their partnership. Would they emerge stronger, or would it crash? As Sarah considered his proposal, Jack's heart thundered. This was more than a dialogue. It was about to become a crucible, testing their limits and courage. The question loomed larger than life. Were they prepared to face the truths that could alter their destinies? And with that thought spiraling within him, Jack understood that they were standing on the brink of irrevocable transformation. Or perhaps the brink of a confrontation that had been long overdue. The weeks that followed became a transformative crucible for Jack and Sarah. They committed to their project with an intensity they had not anticipated, every shared sketch and brainstorming session reinforcing their partnership. Jack's newfound honesty about his insecurities catalyzed a refreshing openness in their interactions. They explored vulnerabilities with as much attention as they devoted to design elements. As they delved into the depths of their project, Jack dedicated himself to not only the architectural plans, but also to reconstructing the very foundation of his character. He confronted the shadows of his past, his indiscretions, his doubts, and the buried resentment that had festered for too long. This growth wasn't just about him. It was about the commitment to forging a shared future with Sarah, a partnership built on mutual respect and accountability. In their meetings, Jack began to articulate his vision not only for the physical space, but for the emotional architecture of their relationship. He developed a renovation plan that highlighted the essence of the community center, designing open spaces that invited collaboration and connection, an embodiment of their newly discovered synergy. Each conceptual drawing became a testament to their growth, a melding of their dreams reborn through honest conversations. Through these explorations, Jack witnessed the cracks of his previous failures gradually merging into solid seams of promise. The shame he once felt transformed into a compelling drive to prove himself not just to Sarah, but to his own conscience. The more he embraced his vulnerabilities, the more he understood the essential role of honesty in personal and professional realms. When they unveiled the completed plans to their mentor, Mark, an air of confidence washed over Jack. He articulated their vision with clarity, blending professional ambition with an emotional narrative that resonated beyond the architectural blueprints. Mark observed with visible appreciation his earlier skepticism quieted by Jack's authenticity and the evident partnership he shared with Sarah. In that moment, Jack grasped that he had not only redefined a project, but had carved out a new identity for himself. He was no longer merely Jack Miller, an architect in self-doubt, hiding behind accolades. He emerged as a co-creator, a leader entwined with a vision that encompassed both personal accountability and collaboration. The culmination of their effort came with the grand reopening of the community center. As people filled the space, laughter and chatter replaced echoes of abandonment. Jack spotted Sarah, her face radiating pride and joy as she mingled amongst the attendees. She caught his gaze and smiled, a sight that filled him with warmth and an overwhelming sense of achievement. They had not only reconstructed a physical space, but they had reinforced the bonds governing their relationship, emerging as a team reborn from the ashes of fracture. After the event, amidst the congratulatory atmosphere, Jack took Sarah aside. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said, his tone imbued with sincerity. "We've created something beautiful that reflects both of our stories. I'm grateful for your partnership." Her eyes softened, revealing the depths of understanding and affection they had cultivated. "And I'm proud of you as a partner and who you've become. This project was born from vulnerability and honesty, both of which we've embraced together." In that exchange, Jack felt a solid confidence coalesce within him. The blend of personal commendation and professional success resonated throughout his entirety. He had conquered the issues that once marred his journey, proving to himself and to those around him that true strength lay in collaboration, not in isolation. The healing of his marriage and the success of their project marked the crystallization of personal growth. Jack had metamorphosed into the architect of his destiny. As they stood there, Jack knew he had achieved a dual victory: a revitalized relationship with Sarah and a profound realization of his competence, recognized not just by others, but, most importantly, by himself. This was it. He had built something meaningful from the chaos, reclaiming both his professional identity and the love he shared with Sarah. As the night sky enveloped them and the laughter from the crowd echoed in the distance, he understood that he had finally created a life authentic and fulfilling, very much in his own design. You need to subscribe now to witness the next powerful transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these inspiring stories alive. Comment your thoughts on the conclusion, your reactions, and any theories you have about Jack and Sarah's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread this message of personal growth.